It's like a round thing with a nipple. Dislike. Hey everyone! Today I am coming to you from my tiny little bathroom. I'm currently renting the top floor of my brother's big old house. I have a kitchen, a living room, a couple bedrooms, and this tiny, glorious little bathroom. And when I say tiny, I mean this is it. This is the whole thing. I've done several things to make this space my own. I've painted the walls, I've painted the cabinets, I've added new hardware, a shower curtain, some art, and some plants. But the one thing that's bothered me since the day I moved in is this light. It's a standard contractor boob light, for lack of a better word. What are the kids calling it these days? It's a boob light. So in today's video, you're gonna see how I take something that I really, really hate and turn it into something that I really, really love. If you like this video while you're watching, please give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed yet, do it. Okay, so the first step in this light fixture makeover was to remove the existing light fixture and replace it with one that can properly hold the wood bead chandelier that I'm making. Here's a disclaimer. If your house is full of these contractor standard boob lights, please don't take it personally that I'm removing mine and replacing it. I'm picky about lighting, and admittedly in the past I have replaced perfectly well functioning light fixtures in favor of something I like to look at. Don't hate me. This fixture, however, was not functioning perfectly. There was definitely something wrong with the wiring, and it was old and grimy and had been painted over one too many times. I absolutely sent it to its grave, and I didn't donate it or repurpose it. I straight up threw it away. Feel free to shame me, I can handle it. I've included all the links to everything I used in the description box below, but I chose this one specifically because I needed a fixture that had 3 little screws on the outside so I could attach the chain that holds the beaded chandelier. This one I picked up on Amazon was a perfect solution, and it's exactly what I needed. I turned off the power going to my bathroom and installed the new fixture. I know some people are intimidated by hardwiring a light themselves, but you really don't have to be. It's quite simple. There's tons of detailed tutorials on YouTube about how to do this properly, so I won't go into detail here, but let me just say this. One of the easiest things you can do to update a rental space is to replace contractor lighting with lighting that you love. You can store the old lights and put them back up before you move out, but it gives you an opportunity to enjoy the space you're living in while you're living in it. Once I got the fixture installed, it was time to make the chandelier. I've seen these wood bead chandeliers all over Pinterest and I really love them, but they're pricey and you know how I love to DIY all the things. The cost of beads was only 39 bucks, so I couldn't help myself. I had to give this a go. I organized all the beads in various sizes in little bowls to make it easier to grab them, and then I got to stringing. Full disclosure, this part took for freaking ever. I did a ton off camera over the course of a few days when I had time, and I made several mistakes that I didn't film. Just imagine beads scattered all over my floor more than once and me cursing this project over and over. There's a reason why these dang chandeliers are so expensive. It's an extremely easy project to make, but it's totally time consuming and very repetitive. All of the bead sizes, the lengths, the quantity of strings of beads I used, they're all in the description box below, but I made 8 strings in different lengths, if that makes sense. A couple tips if you're going to attempt this yourself. I used clear fishing line type cording that was super strong, and I tied knots on both ends to avoid losing my hard work like I did a few times at the start. Also, use a needle to grab several beads at once to speed up the process, and make sure that your expectations are realistic as far as how long this is going to take. This video makes it look like I strung beads for a few minutes. No. I strung beads for years and years and was mostly hating myself for starting this project in the first place. But when all the strings of beads were ready for assembly, I was so relieved and excited, and the project felt fun again. I've seen these chandeliers done several different ways, but I wanted to make it look slightly less homemade by adding these little eye hooks for the strings to attach to. I started out with a 10-inch embroidery hoop. You can get them at your local craft store or Amazon for super cheap. I happen to have one lying around. I made 8 evenly spaced out sections, and each section had 6 eye hooks. I measured and spaced each pilot hole about 1/4 inch apart, and then I screwed each eye hook in one at a time. I used a needle to make screwing them in a bit easier on my fingers too. When I was all done, I had a great base to attach the strings of beads. Okay, so this part's going to be slightly hard to explain, but hopefully you can see what I'm doing in the video. I started with the eye hook farthest to the left in one section, tied one end of my string there, and then I skipped a section of eye hooks and tied the other end of my string to the eye hook farthest to the right on the next section. Whew! Make sure when you're stringing beads that you leave a ton of extra cording to work with during this tying process. A few of my strings didn't have that extra cord, and tying these knots was really difficult. It's important to get the knots really tight so that the strings of beads are secure, and those shorter strings were much harder to get tight, so definitely make your ends longer than you think you should. Learn from me. I cut the ends of strings as I went to keep it all clean and easy to work with. I repeated this process 8 times, making sure that I overlapped each section over the next, creating a sort of swoop effect. I tied the sections of longer strings to the empty space between the eye hooks in a similar overlapping swoop pattern, making sure that my knots were really tight. I repeated this process 8 times, and this is what I was left with. I grabbed the outer piece of embroidery loop and used wood glue to secure it to the outside of the chandelier. I feel like this finished it off more cleanly and covered up all the visible strings. I forgot to film this, but I removed the hardware that's attached to the embroidery loop after the glue was dry. At this point, I was loving how it was coming together, and I just needed to add the chain that would secure the whole chandelier to the light fixture itself. I measured the chain using the hoop itself as a guide and attached it to itself by opening up a link in the chain, making a loop, and securing it back onto itself using a couple pair of needle nose pliers. This is why those 3 little screws I was telling you about in the beginning are so important. Those are what this chain will attach to. I made sure each chain was equally sized and evenly spaced around the chandelier and literally just hung the chain around the screws on the fixture. So, here's the before again, and here's the after. I think for the price it turned out really well, and I'm loving the boho vibe it gives my bathroom. It feels like a delightful little surprise every time I see it. Despite wanting to never string another bead for as long as I live, it's the perfect upgrade this bathroom needed, and I'm really happy with the result. I upload every single week, so if you're new here and you enjoyed this video, I hope you'll subscribe so I can see you back here next Sunday. Thanks again for your support in watching my videos and for coming back to my channel. Thanks again for watching. I will see you next week.